The dinner party was in full swing by the time I arrived at my parents' house. I'd driven straight from the office, still wearing the jeans and button-down I'd thrown on at 6 a.m., my laptop bag slung over my shoulder because I had a presentation to finalize before tomorrow's board meeting. My sister Elena met me at the door, resplendent in a designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent used to cost back when I paid rent. "You're late," she said, kissing my cheek. "And you look like you just rolled out of bed." "I've been at work since 6. It's Saturday. Companies don't stop operating on weekends." She laughed, that indulgent sound she'd perfected over the years. "Still grinding away at your little startup? Nathan, you're 34. When are you going to settle into something stable?" "I am stable. You know what I mean. A real corporate job. Benefits. Predictable hours. Security." I followed her inside, where my parents were entertaining what looked like 20 people in the living room and dining room. Cocktails and expensive wine and the kind of catered food that was meant to impress. "Nathan." Mom spotted me immediately, waving me over to a cluster of her friends. "Come meet the Hendersons. They're investors, very successful. This is my younger son, Nathan." I shook hands with the Hendersons, a couple in their 60s who looked polished and prosperous. "What do you do, Nathan?" Mr. Henderson asked, the question that always came at these things. "I run a software company," I said. "Oh, how interesting." Mrs. Henderson's tone was that particular brand of polite that meant she found it neither interesting nor impressive. "What kind of software?" "Enterprise resource planning systems. We help companies optimize their operations." "That sounds very practical," she said, and there was that word again. Practical. The word that had followed me my entire life. "Nathan's always been the practical one," Mom interjected, her tone apologetic as if she were explaining a deficiency. "Not brilliant like his sister. Elena's a surgeon, very prestigious, but solid. Dependable. He's good with computers." "Someone has to be," Mr. Henderson said jovially, as if this were a compliment. I smiled and nodded and extracted myself as quickly as possible, heading for the kitchen where the actual food was. Elena found me there, filling a plate with appetizers. "Mom's doing it again," I said. "Doing what?" "The thing where she introduces me as the practical one, not brilliant." Elena shrugged. "Well, you're not exactly doing cutting-edge research like I am. You're doing business software. It's practical. It's a $3.8 billion company with 2,400 employees across 12 countries, I said quietly. "But sure. Practical." She blinked. "What?" "Nothing. Forget it." But she was already looking at me with that confused expression, the one that appeared whenever I accidentally revealed something that didn't fit their narrative of who I was. "Nathan, what are you talking about? Your startup makes business software." "My company, not startup, it hasn't been a startup in years, makes enterprise resource planning software that's used by 73 of the Fortune 500. Current valuation is $3.8 billion. Annual revenue last year was $847 million. Her mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. "That's not possible." "It's very possible. It's also not particularly relevant to this dinner party, which is why I don't usually mention it." "You don't mention that you run a billion-dollar company?" "Why would I? You all decided years ago what kind of success matters. Elena's a surgeon. Prestigious, important, worthy of pride. I write software. Practical, boring, not worth discussing." I stopped trying to correct the narrative around the time you told your colleagues I did IT stuff. That was years ago. It was 6 months ago. At your hospital fundraiser. You introduced me to the chief of staff as your brother who does IT stuff for small businesses. She flushed. "I didn't know. You never asked. None of you ever asked. You just assumed that because I'm not performing surgery or arguing cases in court or doing something that looks impressive at cocktail parties, I must be doing something small. Something practical." I picked up my plate and headed for the quieter study, where Dad kept his books and his single malt scotch. I settled into a leather chair and pulled out my laptop, balancing the plate on the armrest. The presentation was almost done. Tomorrow's board meeting was crucial. We were discussing the acquisition of a European competitor that would expand our market share by 30%. The numbers were solid. The strategic fit was perfect. But the board needed to see the vision, understand the long-term play. I was deep in the financial projections when Dad found me. There you are, he said, pouring himself a scotch. Hiding in the study. Some things never change. Just working on a presentation. On a Saturday night. During your mother's dinner party. He shook his head, settling into the chair across from me. You know, son, at some point you need to learn to relax. Enjoy life. You can't work all the time. I like my work. That's admirable, but there's more to life than computers. Look at your sister, she works hard, yes, but she also has a social life. Friends. Interests outside of work. I have interests. What besides that company of yours? That company is my interest. Building it, growing it, solving problems. That's what I find interesting. He sighed, the sound heavy with disappointment. Your mother and I worry about you. You're 34, still single, working yourself to death for this software business that could fail any day. Startups are risky, Nathan. Maybe it's time to think about stability. A position at an established company. Something with a future. Dad, the company has 2,400 employees. I know you have some employees, but 2,400 across 12 countries. Offices in New York, San Francisco, London, Berlin, Tokyo, Singapore. Annual revenue of $847 million. Valued at $3.8 billion by our last funding round. The Scotch glass stopped halfway to his mouth. What? The company. It's not small. It hasn't been small for years. We're one of the leading enterprise software providers in the world. He set down the glass carefully. Nathan, are you saying you run $1 billion company? Yes. That's exactly what I'm saying. But you live in that small apartment. I live in a 3-bedroom loft in Soma that I own outright. It's 2,200 square feet. The building has great light and I'm walking distance from the office. The office in that warehouse district. The office in a modern building that we designed and built. 12 floors. Rooftop garden. The warehouse district has been redeveloped. It's now one of the most expensive commercial real estate areas in San Francisco. He was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Why didn't you tell us? I tried to tell you. Multiple times. Remember when I said we'd closed a major funding round? You asked if that meant I'd finally be able to afford a car. Remember when I mentioned we were opening international offices? You said that sounded risky and I should be careful. Remember when I tried to explain our revenue growth? You told me to stop bragging and be more like Elena. We didn't understand. You didn't want to understand. You wanted me to be the practical one. The steady one. The one who didn't dream too big or want too much. It was easier than accepting that I might be building something significant. He looked genuinely stricken. Nathan, I'm sorry. We should have paid more attention. Yes. You should have. My laptop chimed. Email notification. Then another. Then several more in rapid succession. I glanced at the screen and felt my stomach drop. The Harvard Business Review article had published. I'd known it was coming. The writer had interviewed me 3 months ago, spent a week embedded with my team, talked to our clients and employees and competitors. The focus was on our innovation model. How we'd disrupted the enterprise software industry by actually listening to what users needed instead of building what we thought they should want. But I'd thought it was publishing next week. Not tonight. Not during my mother's dinner party. Everything okay? Dad asked. The Harvard Business Review just published a feature article about the company. Harvard Business Review writes about software? They write about innovative business models. Our approach to product development is apparently noteworthy. More emails flooded in. Colleagues, clients, industry analysts, board members. Everyone who subscribed to HBR had apparently seen the article within minutes of publication. My phone started ringing. I glanced at it. My VP of Communications. Sorry, I need to take this, I told Dad, stepping into the hallway. Nathan, have you seen it? Jennifer's voice was excited. The article is incredible. They're calling us the most innovative enterprise software company of the decade. The quotes from clients are glowing. This is going to be huge for business development. I'm just seeing the notifications now. How's the response? Overwhelming. Our website traffic is up 400% in the last 10 minutes. The PR team is fielding interview requests from Bloomberg, Forbes, TechCrunch. Everyone wants to talk to you. Schedule them for next week. Right now I'm at a family thing. Family thing. She laughed. Nathan, Harvard Business Review just called you a visionary. You're about to become the face of enterprise software innovation. You can't hide at a family thing. Watch me. Schedule everything for Monday. I'll be in the office at 6. You're always in the office at 6. Then nothing changes. Talk Monday. I hung up and found Elena standing in the hallway, her phone in her hand, her face pale. Nathan, she said slowly. Did you see this? The HBR article? Yeah, it just published. There's a photo of you. On the Harvard Business Review website. The headline says, The Quiet Revolutionary, How Nathan Chen Transformed Enterprise Software. That's a bit dramatic, but yes. It says your company generated $847 million in revenue last year. $847.3 million, but they rounded. It says you have over 2,000 employees. 2,387 as of last week. We're hiring aggressively. It says clients describe you as the most innovative mind in enterprise software. That's generous. There are several people in the field doing equally important work. He just stared at me. Why didn't you tell me? Elena, we have lunch once a month. Every single time you talk about your surgeries, your research, your department politics. I listen. I ask questions. I'm supportive. But when I try to talk about my work, you say, that's nice, and change the subject. After a while, I stopped trying. I thought you were running a small software company. Why did you think that? Because you never acted like you were running something big. You dress casually. You drive a Toyota. You live simply. I dress for comfort. I drive a Prius because it's reliable and environmentally friendly. I live simply because I don't need much. None of that has anything to do with the size or success of my company. Mom appeared at the top of the hallway, her expression confused. What's going on? People are looking at their phones and talking about Nathan. The Harvard Business Review just published a major feature about Nathan's company, Elena said, her voice strange. That's nice, dear, Mom said absently. Nathan, the Hendersons want to talk to you about investments. They're looking for opportunities in the tech sector. Mom, Elena said, her voice sharper now. The Harvard Business Review. One of the most prestigious business publications in the world. They wrote about Nathan. Oh. Mom looked mildly interested. That's good exposure for a small business. It's not a small business. Elena's voice rose. His company is valued at $3.8 billion. The hallway went silent. Mom looked at Elena, then at me, then back at Elena. That's not possible, she said finally. I pulled up the article on my laptop and turned it toward her. The headline filled the screen, along with a professional photo they'd taken of me in the office, standing in front of the wall-sized screen that displayed our global operations in real time. Mom's eyes scanned the text, her face going through a series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, shock, something that might have been panic. 12 countries, she read aloud. 73 Fortune 500 clients. $847 million in annual revenue. Disrupting the enterprise software industry with a revolutionary approach to user-centered design. She looked up at me. Nathan, what is this? It's my company. The one I've been building for the past 10 years. The one you call that software thing. But you never said it was this big. I tried to. You weren't interested. Dad had joined us now, along with several party guests who'd been drawn by the commotion. Mr. Henderson was reading the article on his phone, his expression shifting from polite interest to serious attention. Chen Enterprise Systems, he said slowly. You're Nathan Chen who founded CS. Yes. We looked at investing in your Series C round. Our fund couldn't get in. You were oversubscribed by 300%. We had a lot of interest. The terms were very favorable to investors. I'll bet. CS is projected to IPO in the next 2 years at a valuation north of $10 billion. Mom made a small sound. 10 billion. If the growth trajectory continues, I said. But projections are just projections. We're focused on building sustainable value, not chasing valuation milestones. Sustainable value, Mr. Henderson repeated, now looking at me with completely different eyes. Mr. Chen, I'd love to discuss potential investment opportunities. Perhaps we could have lunch next week. Have your people contact my CFO. Her information is on our website. Elena was scrolling through her phone now, her face cycling through expressions. There are 40 articles. Bloomberg, Forbes, TechCrunch, The Wall Street Journal. Everyone's covering the HBR piece. It was a slow news day, I said. Don't, she said sharply. Don't diminish this. This is huge, Nathan. This is the kind of recognition that companies spend millions trying to get. I know what it is. I've spent 10 years building toward this. But it doesn't change anything fundamental about who I am or what I do. It changes everything, Mom said, her voice small. Nathan, we had no idea. You had every opportunity to have an idea. I invited you to the office opening. You said you were busy. I invited you to our company's 5th anniversary celebration. You said it sounded boring. I tried to explain our growth milestones. You told me to stop showing off. The party guests were openly staring now, their phones out, reading the article, looking at me with new eyes. The practical one. The unambitious one. The son who was good with computers but not brilliant like his sister. I think I'm going to head out, I said, closing my laptop. I have work tomorrow anyway. It's Sunday, Dad protested. Board meeting. We're discussing a $600 million acquisition. It requires preparation. $600 million, he repeated faintly. It's a good strategic fit. Will expand our European market share by 30% and give us access to some proprietary technology that complements our existing platform. Elena grabbed my arm. Nathan, wait. We need to talk about this. What's there to talk about? Everything. You're running $1 billion company and we didn't know. How is that possible? It's possible because you never asked. You never showed interest. You assumed that because my success didn't look like your success, didn't involve a medical degree or publications in prestigious journals or patients whose lives you saved, it must not be real success. That's not fair. Isn't it? At your hospital fundraiser, when I tried to explain what CES does, you cut me off and said, it's too technical for me to understand. You're a surgeon. You understand complex systems. You just didn't think my work was worth understanding. Mom was crying now, silent tears running down her carefully made-up face. Nathan, we're proud of you. We've always been proud of you. You've always been politely supportive of your practical son who does computer things. That's not the same as proud. Elena does groundbreaking surgery and you tell everyone. You show photos. You explain her research in detail to anyone who'll listen. I built a company that's changing how businesses operate and you introduce me as good with computers. We didn't understand, Dad said, his voice rough. You should have made us understand. I tried. For years I tried. Eventually I stopped trying and just focused on the work. And you know what? It was liberating. I built something incredible without needing your validation. I hired brilliant people, solved complex problems, created real value in the world. The work spoke for itself. I didn't need you to understand it. My phone was ringing again. Jennifer, probably with more press requests. I ignored it. The Harvard Business Review article doesn't change anything, I said. Tomorrow I'll go to the office at 6 like always. I'll review the acquisition documents. I'll meet with the board. I'll check in with our international teams. I'll work on the problems that need solving. The only difference is that now the world knows what I've been building. But I already knew. My team knew. Our clients knew. We've been doing the work all along. Can we read the article? Mom asked, her voice breaking. Really read it? Together. I looked at her for a long moment. At all of them. My parents, my sister, the party guests who'd witnessed this entire conversation. People who'd known me for decades but had never really seen me. It's public, I said finally. Anyone can read it. The question is whether you'll actually absorb what it says or whether you'll just skim it and go back to thinking of me as the practical one. Elena pulled up the article on her phone. She started reading aloud, her voice steady but emotional. Nathan Chen doesn't fit the Silicon Valley founder stereotype. He doesn't wear hoodies or make grandiose pronouncements about changing the world. He shows up at the office at 6 a.m. in jeans and a button-down, makes coffee for his team and spends the day solving problems. But beneath this understated exterior is one of the most innovative minds in enterprise software. Chen Enterprise Systems, the company Chen founded 10 years ago with $50,000 in savings, has quietly revolutionized how businesses manage their operations. With 2,387 employees, offices in 12 countries, and $847 million in annual revenue, CS is now used by 73 Fortune 500 companies and hundreds of mid-size enterprises worldwide. What sets CS apart isn't just the technology, though the platform's AI-driven optimization engines are industry-leading. It's Chen's philosophy that software should serve users, not the other way around. This user-centered approach was radical when CS launched and remains rare in an industry that often prioritizes features over functionality. He paused, looking up at me. Nathan, this is incredible. Keep reading, I said quietly. She continued. Chen's journey to success was unconventional. After graduating from a state university with a computer science degree, he spent 5 years working at various enterprise software companies, watching users struggle with poorly designed systems. I saw the same problems everywhere, Chen says. Software that was powerful but incomprehensible. Systems that made people's jobs harder instead of easier. I knew there had to be a better way. So he built one. Working from a small apartment, Chen spent 18 months developing the first version of what would become CS. He funded the development with his savings and a small business loan, living on ramen and cheap coffee. I wasn't trying to build a billion-dollar company, he says. I was trying to solve a problem that frustrated me. The business success came from solving that problem better than anyone else. Today, CS is valued at $3.8 billion and projected to IPO within 2 years. Industry analysts predict a $10+ billion valuation at public offering. But Chen seems remarkably unmoved by these numbers. The valuation is just external validation, he says. What matters is whether we're solving real problems for real users. That's the work I care about. The study had filled with people now, everyone crowding in to hear the article. Elena's voice carried through the room. Chen's leadership style is as unconventional as his approach to software design. He has no private office, working instead from an open desk alongside his engineers. He answers customer support calls 1 day a month to stay connected to user pain points. He's known for responding to employee emails at 6 a.m. and for personally interviewing every candidate for senior positions. Nathan doesn't manage like a typical CEO, says Jennifer Park, CS's VP of Communications. He manages like someone who genuinely cares about the work and the people doing it. There's no ego, no hierarchy for the sake of hierarchy. Just smart people solving problems together. This approach has created fierce loyalty among CS employees. The company's retention rate is 94%, extraordinary in an industry known for job hopping. People don't leave CS because they believe in what we're building, says Michael Torres, CS's Chief Technology Officer. Nathan created a culture where the work matters more than the title, where solving the problem matters more than who gets credit. Elena stopped reading, her eyes wet. Nathan, they're describing someone remarkable. Someone brilliant and innovative and practical, I finished. Someone who saw practical problems and built practical solutions. Someone who isn't flashy or dramatic but who does the work consistently and well. That's what you've been calling me all along. You just assumed practical meant small. We were wrong, Dad said, his voice thick. So completely wrong. Mom crossed the room and hugged me, something she hadn't done in years. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. We should have seen you. Really seen you. You should have, I agreed, but I hugged her back. Because she was my mother and I loved her even if she'd never understood me. Mr. Henderson cleared his throat. Mr. Chen, Nathan, I owe you an apology as well. When your mother introduced you as practical, not brilliant, I accepted that characterization without question. But this article makes clear that you're one of the most brilliant business minds of your generation. The quiet revolutionary, as they put it. The revolution isn't quiet anymore, Elena said, still reading from her phone. There are 60 articles now. Everyone's covering this. Nathan, you're trending on Twitter. LinkedIn, I corrected. Twitter's for celebrities and politicians. LinkedIn is where business news trends. And yes, I saw the notifications. My phone wouldn't stop ringing now. I finally answered, Jennifer again. Nathan, I know you're at a family thing, but Bloomberg wants to do a live interview tomorrow morning. This is huge. We can't ignore it. Schedule it for 7 a.m. I'll be at the office anyway. On a Sunday? I have a board meeting at 9. Bloomberg can have an hour. You're impossible. But brilliant. Everyone's saying it now. I hung up and found the entire party staring at me. 20 people who'd arrived expecting cocktails and small talk, now witnesses to a family reckoning. I should go, I said, picking up my laptop bag. Tomorrow's going to be intense and I need to finalize these presentation materials. Nathan, please stay, Mom said. We want to celebrate this. To celebrate you. I don't need celebration. I need to work. The work can wait one night. Can it? We're negotiating a $600 million acquisition. 1,200 people are counting on me to make the right decision. Clients are depending on us to keep innovating. The work doesn't stop because Harvard Business Review wrote an article. Elena stepped in front of the door. What about your family? Don't we count? I looked at her for a long moment. You've always counted. That was never the question. The question was whether I counted. Whether my work mattered. Whether my success was real even though it didn't look like yours. And you all answered that question over and over by calling me practical instead of brilliant. By introducing me as good with computers instead of by name. By treating my company like a hobby instead of the life's work it actually is. We'll do better, Dad said. We want to do better. I hope you do. But Dad, I need you to understand something. The Harvard Business Review article doesn't make my work more important than it was yesterday. It doesn't make me more worthy of respect. It just makes my success visible to people who couldn't see it before. We see it now, Mom said. Do you? Or do you see what HBR sees? Because if you only see me when external validators say I'm worth seeing, then we still have a problem. The room was silent. I moved toward the door. Elena stepped aside but she caught my arm as I passed. I love you, she said quietly. I've always loved you. I just didn't understand what you were building. I love you too. But love isn't the same as respect. I need you to respect my work even when you don't understand it. Even when it's not as dramatic as performing surgery. Even when it's just me in front of a computer writing code and solving problems. I will. I promise I will. I nodded and walked out to my car. The emails were still flooding in. Hundreds now from colleagues and clients and competitors and journalists. The article had touched something, apparently. Struck a chord with people who understood that real innovation often looks quiet and practical rather than flashy and dramatic. My phone rang again. This time it was Michael Torres, my CTO and one of my oldest friends. Dude, have you seen the response? He said when I answered. It's insane. Every major business publication is covering the HBR piece. Your inbox must be exploding. It is. I'm ignoring most of it. You can't ignore this. This is the kind of exposure companies pay millions for. We need to capitalize on it. We will. Monday. Right now I need to finish the acquisition presentation. It's Saturday night. It's always Saturday night somewhere. The work doesn't stop. He laughed. This is why you're brilliant, you know. Not because you built $1 billion company but because you actually care more about the work than the recognition. The work is the point. The recognition is just noise. Well, the noise is pretty loud right now. Embrace it for a minute. You earned this. Maybe. Or maybe I just got lucky with timing and execution and hiring people smarter than me. That's exactly what the article says. That you built a company by hiring brilliant people and getting out of their way. That's what makes you brilliant. After we hung up, I sat in the car for a moment, watching the lights from my parents' house spill onto the lawn. Inside, my family was probably still discussing the article, trying to reconcile the person they thought they knew with the person HBR had described. Let them reconcile. Let them adjust their understanding. Let them figure out that practical and brilliant weren't opposites. That sometimes the most brilliant thing you could do was solve practical problems in practical ways. Tomorrow I'd wake up at 5:30 a.m. like always. I'd go for a run, the same 3-mile loop I'd been running for 5 years. I'd make coffee and review overnight emails from our Tokyo and London offices. I'd prep for the Bloomberg interview and the board meeting. I'd check in with the engineering team about the product roadmap. I'd have lunch at my desk while reviewing acquisition documents. Just another day. Just the work. The recognition was nice. The validation from Harvard Business Review, from industry analysts, from people who finally understood what we'd been building. That was gratifying. But it didn't change anything fundamental. I was still the practical one. The one who showed up early and stayed late. The one who cared more about solving problems than getting credit. The one who built something real through steady, unglamorous work. The only difference was that now people were calling it brilliant instead of dismissing it as unambitious. I drove back to the city, my laptop bag in the passenger seat, my mind already moving through tomorrow's presentation. The acquisition was strategic. The numbers were solid. The board would approve it. And then we'd move on to the next problem. The next opportunity. The next challenge. Because that's what we did. That's what I did. Practical or brilliant, it didn't matter. The work was the same either way. And the work was everything.